Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. On this video, we are going to cover installing your ThunderCam. And there's going to be a few preparations that you're going to have to make. One, we're going to have to make sure that we have access to the right side of the machine. So the top panel, which is typically Allen key bolted shut for safety concerns, we're going to have to make sure that we can open that. The other thing is we're going to have access to the bottom panel, the electronics panel as well. What we're going to be doing is running our camera from the middle of the lid of the machine so that the camera can see down onto the bed when we're using it. It's taking an aerial image of the bed to be able to place everything on your graphics on your materials. Which is pretty interesting. It's really cool the way it works, but it does not work with the lid down. It actually works with the lid up, taking that satellite image. So we're going to be running the camera here, and we're going to have to clean off this surface so that we can use our sticky backs and our zip ties to hold the wiring in. We're going to run the wire across, down, and then there's a couple of openings that we can use to run the wire through the top of the machine down to the bottom of the machine and get our USB cable outside of the machine so that we can connect it to our computer. But again, you're going to have access to the lid. You're going to be running wire down, across, securing it on the top side here, running it through a hole and then into the panel. So you're going to want to have access to the side, and we'll take the camera off and show you that side, and then also have access to the electronics panel where our connections are on the side, where you plug in your USB and the thumb drive and stuff like that. All right, let's get to what goes in the kit, everything that comes in the kit, and we'll bring you closer to the machine and go over a couple of things too. Before we go over what's in the kit, I'm going to want acetone so that I can clean off wherever I'm putting my sticky backs. Sticky backs are these. They have 3M tape on the back. What they're going to do is allow you to zip tie through that little hole there the wire so that it's safe and out of the way. So we're going to want something to clean off the machine so it's free of oils and dirt and debris. You're going to need a little flathead screwdriver and a towel to wipe off with. Also, I have a pair of side cutters so that I can trim up my zip ties so they're not in the way. But in the kit, we have some zip ties, we have some sticky backs, we have our cable holder that is going to allow the cable to stay in place and also hold it in the machine as it exits. So it's helping secure and not just having the wire pass through a hole. It's actually going to be nice and secure in this mount. And this is going to get attached by screws to the machine. We have our wire with our camera connection and then a USB on the other side. This is going to go to the camera and then down to our repeating USB cable. We're using a newer style repeating cable because there's a lot of information being passed through the camera to the computer, and if we don't use kind of an amplified system over that great length of wire, you end up losing signal. So that's what comes in the kit. That's what you're going to need to be prepared to do it. Now let's take a walk over to the machine. So looking at this installation after the install will probably be a better indication of how everything gets run rather than explaining it to you before the install. So what we're doing is finding center point, and we can use the motor back there, the hinge mounts that are right there, also the two screws that are in the center. Now, depending on your machine, it may be a little bit different, but we need to find center, even the center of the handle. You can measure it out and just find your center point the best that you can. Wire is going to be going down the crossbar here, and using the sticky backs and the zip ties, we're securing it. I run the wire, as you'll see in the install video, through these mounts for the glass Then I go directly underneath, come around the side here. Directly underneath, 2 more sticky backs to secure the wire. Again, cleaning all of these surfaces here, and then I loop it over these wires, which will be explained in the video again. Loop it over this wire here, and then down through the hole. You can remove this door, which I'll show you in the video, and then you can see our mount there where the wire's going through. I'm gonna pull on the wire a little bit, you can see it. And that just mounts to where we remove our U-disc cable mount there as well. All right, let's get to it. So the design of most of these machines are the same, with sizing being the biggest factor of change. But what we're gonna look for, again, is our center point, and we're gonna run that wire across here, probably 2 sticky backs up here. We can feed the wire through these 2 channels that support the glass. There's actually enough room to run that wire up through the channel and then across. So positioning these sticky backs so that the wire is out of the way and not going to get caught by the head or fall eventually is really one of the larger parts of this task. But I already have my towel ready, and I'm going to wipe off all the possible areas that I'm going to put this camera. And then I'll also wipe off the underside when I go to put those sticky backs over there. I am going to shut it off. I'm going to be running wires past all of the AC terminals where the e-stop is, and also where the electrical switch is for the laser power supply. So let's turn it off. Now on our mount, we actually have Thunder Laser printed on it. That's going to be facing you. We're going to release these locks, and now we can see we have articulation of the actual camera. So decide where you want to put it, and it's really just preference. I like mine on the bar here so that I don't see it from the other side of the glass. But that is completely up to you, wherever you feel you're going to get a more secure adhesion of the camera mount. Let me peel this back off. Now we're going to want to make sure also that it's as straight as possible, and that's another reason I like using the metal bar, is because I can make sure that I have it right up against one of the straight lines. So I'm going to find my center, and I see these 2 bolts here. I'm going to follow it up, and I'm going to position it as much as I can. Of course, you can measure it all out. I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants and place it on there. Now, making sure the camera is pointed directly down is a big part of this, because we do want to have a straight shot, and we want to get as much of the bed as possible. So being straight on is going to be the best method. Now once we have the camera connected, we can make some final adjustments. I know this is going to be very close, and you don't have to tighten it all the way down right now. We can always come back, loosen it, adjust it when we see the image on our screen. Okay, so before I even put any of those sticky back and zip tie holders up here, I'm going to run my wire. And again, like I said, you can use the small end and run it through this channel. It just slides right through. And the reason why I'm going to wait to put those sticky backs on is because once I have the wire over there, I can see where I really need support. Do I need to use 2? Do I need to use 1? You know, the smaller the machine, you won't need to use as many. So I'm going to pull it over here. I'm going to plug it in. And then just make sure you have the wire the correct way. You may need a little extra light and a good pair of eyes to do this, which I have neither. Okay, so that's in. And I usually want it to be in that channel, but it might be difficult with those sticky backs. But I can tell that I'm going to need one at least in the middle between my two screws here. Again, if you have a smaller machine, the layout, I mean, don't take this specifically. Look at your machine and figure out exactly what length or what distance you're going to need to use for those sticky backs. I think right over here is going to be good for one, and I'm pretty sure this is going to hold pretty well. You can kind of wedge this wire in between the glass and the metal, depending on how much distance you have. But yep, I'm going to put a sticky back here, zip tie it, and it's going to be secure. Again, we wiped it down already with acetone. You could use denatured alcohol, something to remove any type of oils and grease. I'm going to take the middle. You determine on your machine what you're going to need to use. But I'm going to set this right here. Secure it down. The zip tie just kind of passes right through. Depending on how you have these positioned and which way you put it into the holder will determine kind of on which side of the holder the wire stays. So might want to play through that physically a few times. But if you slide that right through, and let me grab one real quick. Again, we slide it through the holder, and now it is inside there, and then you can zip tie it and then cut it off. So I want it to be on the inside of this wire, or the mount. Pull it tight. I am actually going to use two because I want to secure it here as well before it goes down into these channels. Okay. Another zip tie. Give myself a little bit of slack here. There we go. And this is where either a razor blade or a wire cutter, something to safely cut these zip ties without cutting the wire or scratching your machine. Okay. Now that's set. We are down to the chassis of the machine. We're off the lid with our USB. Now we can go to the side panel and start running that through the hole into the electronics bay. Let's do that now. Okay, so I did turn my machine back on, so you have a little bit better visibility during this video. But for the most part, you're gonna wanna shut it off, make sure you have good lighting, maybe a flashlight. Another reason I turned it back on is because I did forget to mention that we're going to want to move this out of our way. We're going to want to move our gantry to the back of the machine so we have clear access to what we need. And again, the wire that we ran down the lid is right here. We have our lighting bracket over here. And our main goal is to get around that wire or around the lighting and then tuck it up underneath. And there is a lip here. There's a lip right here, and this is what I'm going to use. Let me pull this camera down a little bit more. So there's a lip here, or a frame support, and what we could start to do is we can wipe it down, and then we can start to use those mounts. Either the mounts, the sticky backs can go to the top or to the side, whichever you decide, and then across. I do recommend, we see these wires over here, up and over. This way there's yet another safety, a catch, so that if the sticky backs do fail and fall off, maybe there was a little bit of debris or you didn't clean it well enough, if they do fall, at least it's going to be held up somewhere. So I'm going to pull this through. I'll let it sit on the side of the stabilizer arm for the lid, kind of stopping it from getting caught in front. So behind that bracket. And then now I need my sticky backs. I'm going to clean this real quick. And let it dry. So my first sticky back, I'm going to want to put very close to where the wire's entering. So I'm going to put it way back here, up top like that. Give it a good push, hold it for a few seconds, and then I'm going to bring this right up. Again, if the zip tie is going to pass through, I like to put a little bend on the zip tie, like that, because I'm actually going to go from the back side if I can make this happen. Again, do this however it's easier for you. Take your time with it. And if it's too difficult, in my mind, this is the way that I want it to be done. But sometimes you got to change your plans. All right. I have it through. Hold the wire up to the top and secure that down. And there you go. So now this is up, out of the way, not going to be bothered by anything, anybody. It's out of the way of the gantry. I will cut this wire off, or the zip tie. And now I need to figure out where I want to put the next one. And I can see that it has a bow, or it starts to droop here. So I'm going to put it probably right here, right in front of my e-stop switch. I did clean this whole area, so I should be good to go as far as placing this on here. Holding it for a few seconds. Grab my zip tie again. Again, you can do it a couple different ways. Let me say that was a little bit easier. Now, don't secure the zip tie yet. Let's make sure that we pull all the slack out of it, and then we can tighten down that zip tie. All right, if we look inside of the machine here, you can see that the HMI, or the display, has a wire going across it as well. So again, these wires are going to help support it if it falls. Just, any type of safety concerns that we can get out of the way and make sure that this cable does not get caught in the gantry, the better we're going to be. So I see that we have a wire here for the communications and the power for the display. Well, I'm going to route this USB up and over and then down, and just pull it through ever so slightly. And now we can follow that wire coming down and go right through the hole behind it. And I'm going to once again move this camera inside of my machine so you can kind of see where we're going here. So our cable's here, routed around this wire, and it's going to follow right down into that hole. That's it. Kind of push it through. And if you have extra zip ties sitting around, then maybe it'll be a good idea to zip tie it to this wire bundle. But that's up and out of the way, so that's really good. At this point, you could probably put this back up so you can now see clearly everything in the electronic space. So let's do that. So the next part of our process is going to be eliminating the USB stick. And if you have your PC connection, your USB to computer connection in there, or your Ethernet connection, you may want to take it out just so we have easy access. This is a 1.5 Allen key. And what you're going to do is you're just going to remove the 2 Allen keys that hold in this USB thumb drive connection. And just carefully remove those. And then we're going to go in from the back side of this so that we can mount our new holder for the wire, the active repeater wire, and the 3D printed mount for that will hold it securely in here. Okay, that's out. Now we can open up the door and get in from behind. Once you have the USB thumb drive connection off of the main panel, we can really remove it. We can kind of set it back here. If we ever do need to use the USB thumb drive or the U-disc, it'll be positioned right in here and you know where to get to it. Now, there's a couple different ways we can do this. I'm going to choose to run this wire, the USB, directly from the camera out of the hole for the USB drive. So I'm just going to reach in here, I'm going to slide this through, and now I can disconnect it whenever I want. Instead of running my long extension cable into the machine, I'm actually just going to run this USB cable from the camera directly outside. So if I do need to move the machine around, I can easily unplug the extension cable. It's about 15 feet, so yeah, I don't want to be dragging that around and wrapping it up. So put that through, and this is where we're going to need our mount that's going to screw into the place where the USB thumb drive just was. So what we're going to do is slide this piece through our ring and then slide our wire into the holder. And then at that point, we could just, you can see there's a top on it. It says top on the 3D print. And we just find out which way it will slide in there and hold this wire in. It is a tight fit, which is a good thing. We want it to be secure and we don't want it vibrating off so that it falls out. So I'm just going to manipulate this a bit. And maybe I have it in backwards. There we go. There. Okay. So that's what it's going to look like. And again, this kind of secures that to the panel. And now I can put my wire through. All right. And now I can take my 2 Phillips head screws and secure this to the outside of the machine. You can, if you'd like, these are spring-loaded doors. We can pull this off and lift this out. and we could kind of let it hang down for a second. This way we can see exactly what we're doing. So you're going to want to reach behind here so that you can secure this in. You're going to have to do a little bit of blind work, but once you get one in, it should be very easy to get the other. And don't necessarily secure that all the way down, because we do want to be able to move it so that we can line up the second one. Again, reach behind, kind of try to position it, make sure that the screw is going into that 3D printed mount's hole, and then we can screw it down. Okay, I can pull any slack I want. We can just have this pigtail hanging out. We'll be taking our active repeater cable, plugging it in, and then we'll be running this to the computer. Once you plug it into the computer, we'll be following the next steps of how to register it with Lightburn and also calibrating the camera.